Hi, everyone. Carl Steinbeck. Just want to jump on tonight and cover a couple motions that were filed that we've not talked about yet. And there's a one filed by, of all things, Wendy's attorney, which I understand there's a lot of chatter and discussion about that already. And we'll pull that up here on the screen here and we can go through this. So here we have it. This was filed by John Laurel, her attorney out of Tampa area. So it shows here that Wendy's a non-party because it's state of Florida versus Donna Adelson. So she's not a party to Donna's case. She's merely a witness at this point. Sometime down in the near future, you'll see Wendy's name instead of Donna's here when they pursue her. That's my prediction. And so what she's doing is asking for permission to place a statement on the record and to quash the defense subpoena. She is being subpoenaed by both the prosecution and defense, which she has in other cases as well. So this is really, to me, something that's already been done in each and every trial she's testified in. Her attorney's just trying to make it sure that the immunity that's conferred on her by the state statute, which says that basically if you're called by the state as a witness to the trial and you testify, everything you say at trial cannot be used against you unless you lie, of course. Unless you commit perjury, then what you lie about can be admitted against you to prove perjury. So the statute's not a license to lie. So it goes on here to talk about some of the history of the case, how Donna's charged by indictment, and they just want to have this placed on the record, making sure that everybody understands that Wendy has this immunity by this guaranteed by the state statute. Otherwise, they're saying here, it affords Wendy Adelson use and derivative use immunity for her testimony. So use immunity is, so if she got up there and says, yeah, I did it, I took part in the murder of Professor Dan Markell, they couldn't use that statement against her. Okay. Derivative use means something she might say like, oh yeah, I know where the murder weapon is. It's I hid it at a certain location, and she tells them where the location's at. They cannot use that information to go find that weapon. And so I would say that those two, the only two things that apply for her here. She has no immunity for the actual transaction. So the actual murder of Dan Markell, there's no immunity by her being forced to testify for this thing. So independently derived information and evidence that they have already known against Wendy, or those that even the type of evidence that they may even find subsequent to her testimony, as long as it's not stemming from being derived from Wendy, then they can use it in the prosecution of Wendy. So they're saying here that she would otherwise invoke her Fifth Amendment rights, while the defense subpoena provides no such protection. So if she's not called by the state and she's only called by the defense, she has zero protection whatsoever. Everything she says can and will be used against her in her subsequent prosecution. And so that's why her attorney's sitting there saying, we do not want her to testify at all. So think about this, though. She will otherwise invoke her Fifth Amendment rights. The Fifth Amendment rights he's talking about are the rights guaranteed by the Constitution to remain silent. So, but this is like a statute that trumps the right to remain silent and forces you to testify. Otherwise, you could be held in contempt of court and be ordered by the court to go to jail right away if you don't cooperate. So it's sort of like a Fifth Amendment busting type statute because it's really forcing you to testify, and you have to testify truthfully. Otherwise, they could prosecute you for perjury. And so you could be prosecuted for two different things or more. Here they're talking about, again, in the McBanois trial, the court quashed the defense subpoena and granted Wendy Adelson's attorney an opportunity to place a statement on the record. We've seen that on YouTube before. You can see that. And then there's a footnote saying a related case for the court in the McBanois trial. McBanois' counsel argued that it would be reversible error for McBanois' cross-examination to be limited because the state can tailor their direct examination to prohibit McBanois from going to areas that could potentially be relevant based on dicta in the First District Court of Appeal in McBanwell's appeal of the protective order prohibiting the deposition of Wendy Adelson. So think about that. Wendy Adelson appealed it to the district court to fight a deposition in the Katie McBanwell trial. So Katie McBanwell responsible for killing your kid's dad, the kid's dad. You don't want to cooperate in that trial and help get her convicted. So it goes on to say that in that opinion, the First District Court of Appeals did acknowledge that McBanwell would be given little latitude in her cross-examination of Adelson because her questions would be limited to the narrow categories of the information the state's elicited at trial. And it said that when the First Amendment, they typed that wrong. It says the fifth DCA. The first DCA did not grant McBanwell's request for relief in that appeal and recognized that when the Fifth Amendment guarantee collides with the Sixth Amendment in circumstances such as this, the Sixth Amendment right must yield because to require one to incriminate himself in order to help afford another would both be unwise and unrealistic. And they're saying here again that this past month, the First District Court of Appeals again addressed these same arguments by McBanwell. The first DCA found no error in the court's handling of Wendy Adelson's trial testimony, favorably cited Wendy Adelson's counsel's statement on the record, and saying that the court concluded that the trial court properly ruled that she could not be called as a defense witness. Therefore, there's no reason to depart from the procedure employed by the court in the McBanwell trial. In the McBanwell trial, the court scheduled a hearing related to the request of relief just prior to Wendy Adelson's testimony. Wendy Adelson respectfully requested the court to set a similar hearing on this motion outside the presence of the jury prior to testimony or such time determined appropriate by the court. So the Fifth Amendment right to remain silent can be in conflict with the Sixth Amendment right to present a defense. So if Donna's saying, I need to present a defense, I need to have Wendy testify, it's saying here the Sixth Amendment must yield because it requires someone to incriminate themselves in order to help afford another would be both unwise and unrealistic. And so they're saying here that it'd be reversible error. Well, that was the argument by Katie's McBanwell's attorney, Tara Kawas. And it says here the first DCA did acknowledge that McBanwell would be given little latitude in cross-examination Adelson because her questions would be limited to narrow categories of information the state's listed trial. So it's just sort of weird because if there's a lot of derogatory information that they want to bring out at Wendy, such as Wendy saying, maybe they had some witnesses that could say, yeah, Wendy admitted that she was happy Dan was murdered and she helped do a little bit to help that happen. You know, some kind of admission like that. If that's outside the scope of what the prosecution's asking Wendy on the stand, then, you know, is the defense not allowed to ask that? So that would be really a weird thing to have happen at this trial. But obviously we're not going to have that play out that way. Wendy will not make any kind of admission overtly anyway, but through her continual statements that are just beyond belief, and she just cannot, pretty much anything she says of substance, and even things that aren't really substantive, she doesn't want to tell the truth. It's like she's so much into deflection and deceit the way she comes across. So then they go on here to talk about the memorandum of law. And so this thing will be granted by Judge Everett, that she'll get to have Laurel go up there and make a little statement like he did in the other trials. And then that happens before she testifies. I mean, it's really, really bizarre to see such a high-priced attorney representing somebody that's merely a suspect. Obviously, she's an unindicted co-conspirator. So she knows there's evidence against her that could bring her down. So why would you spend a couple $100,000 over the last, over 11 years since a murder, and then you became really, yeah, it wasn't because she did hire a lawyer right away when she was driving down to Miami. So yeah, it's been 11 years she's had a lawyer working for her, trying to make sure she has all these protections afforded, that if she testifies and she's got indicators of involvement through her testimony that she wants some protection for things that she admits to. But think about the last trial with Charlie. She said some things that were very much damaging to her. She's not trusted by jurors. They do not believe her. And so that's why she wants this protection, because she knows that she's not credible. She flip flops all over the place, won't give you a straight answer. And hopefully, Georgia's going to dig in even more details this time around. But imagine that she will not testify against her mom. So if the state doesn't give her immunity, her moms can go down the river, life without parole. And Wendy's going to say, you know what? I'm following my lawyer's advice. I'm not talking, mom. I'm not going to testify on your behalf. So Wendy doesn't want to give any corroboration for her mom unless she's got some kind of immunity. Charlie, what's he going to do? Charlie, he can be forced to testify, but since he has a life sentence, is he worried about being held in contempt of court? So if this Adelson defense is so great, why do they need all this protection? Then they went ahead and attached these pages from the McBanwell trial transcript. So there was 2 trials for Katie. The first one was a hung jury. The second time she got convicted. This is what Wendy's subpoena actually looked like. There's a copy of it here. They blacked out her address. And it shows you a window date here of 8/21/25 at 8:15. So they start jury selection on the 19th. So she needs to be there from the 21st at 8:15 in the morning. And it says, please call the day before your court appearance to verify specific date of trial. So I guess it couldn't maybe be beyond the 21st, could be the 22nd, but she's going to be called, I think, the first day. She's one of the first witnesses to be called. Here's the defense subpoena from Zellman. We don't need to look at that. And then they show what was going on in the Katie McBanwell trial. Here's the transcript. And basically, it was just Laurel talking. Again, he's saying that without a state subpoena, we would unequivocally invoke her Fifth Amendment rights. So imagine how Donna's interpreting this as being like, she's not going to testify to help me out unless the state offers her immunity. And she knows that they're going to call her just like they have the previous trials. And every time we have Wendy Adelson testifying, another co-conspirator gets convicted. So this time it's going to be her mom. Lauren Crime, you're asking, how can they force Charlie to testify if he still has a pending appeal? Well, that's what the statute orders, is folks to testify truthfully. And if Charlie testifies truthfully like he did at trial, then how's that going to hurt him? He may want to plead the Fifth, but this is a Fifth Amendment piercing statute, so he could be held in contempt of court, but he's facing life without parole. So his attorney's not going to tell him, yeah, Charlie, I recommend you don't cooperate with the subpoena. But I think Charlie will pick up on the fact that what will happen if I just tell him I'm not going to testify, I'm invoking the Fifth. Then I think his lawyer would be telling him, well, that's what's going to happen, is you're going to be held in contempt. And so I think there's a good chance Charlie will not testify at all for the defense or for the prosecution. So imagine that. This is such a truthful event. Charlie's testimony, what happened and how he involved his mom and the murder of Dan Markell. And now he's not even going to testify to corroborate anything his mom has to say. So they're all ducking and running, these Florida Adelsons. Yeah, Cam, You're asking, can I explain what Wendy's doing? Seems not to testify for the defense. Only say this is what her lawyer's doing. She doesn't know anything about this, what all this means, probably, but this exactly is what it says. She's testifying for the prosecution. The defense is going um, to open the door if the judge restricts them on cross. They may want to go beyond what the state does for direct. Because think about it, if the state calls her for X, Y, and Z, and the defense wants to open the door to asking her about A, B, and C, if the prosecution objects, then they're sort of stuck with that. So the way to do a workaround would then be to call her on their case in chief. So when the defense goes after the prosecution rests, if they wanted to say, Wendy, we're calling you as a witness on direct, she's going to plead the fifth for basically everything. So defense really has no opportunity to call her for Donna's case. It's only giving the prosecution. And under Florida law, it looks like they could limit it to how much the scope of that goes into asking questions of Wendy. But they don't want to make Wendy look bad on cross-examination because that makes Donna look bad. So the more that Charlie looks bad, the more that Wendy looks bad, the more that confers guilt by association on Donna. Jules Goldstein. Yeah, Wendy has a little different story each time. But last time she finally left the courtroom realizing that she was busted for lying. She was fibbing on a number of things that she got busted on. Keep in mind, she said the Adelsons have unfettered access to visiting their grandsons that she has custody of, the two boys of Professor Dan Markell. So that was a massive lie right there. So I'm just wondering what's the prosecution going to do to counter that? They don't have Bill or Ruth Markell listed as witnesses. So how are they going to counter that? Are they going to call them in rebuttal? If they're watching the trial, they're not going to be called in rebuttal. So I'm just very, very concerned about why they wouldn't be calling Phil or Ruth on the case in chief. That would be a normal thing a prosecutor do on a murder case. You call family members of the victim's family. Sugar beet, you're saying peas in a pot, all of them? Yeah, just keep in mind it's the Florida Adelsons. It's not the highest character caliber Dr. Rob Adelson, who's also going to testify. So think about it. Rob Adelson, he doesn't need immunity, but anybody called by the state has that kind of immunity. So he's going to be testifying as to incriminating actions of his mom and probably others in his immediate family down there in Florida. And then you're going to have Charlie, who's probably not going to want to testify for mom, and they're going to be trying to pull up this extortion racket theory and trying to have it make sense to the jury. And none of it's going to make any sense. Nobody in their right minds wouldn't call the police after the bump happened. The only reason they didn't call the police is because they were guilty of killing Dan Markell. That's it. JC, yes, I believe the rest will be sometimes this year. They've been extremely slow. But despite the PR efforts, those are not going to work. And I'll talk more about that later. But let me cover one other motion here. This one, let me go back to the beginning here. Okay, this is no, that's the wrong one. Sorry. Let me remove that one. Here's a motion to suppress. So this is an interesting one. So the defense has submitted a motion to suppress the testimony of jailhouse informant Drina Bernhardt. And They're saying here in paragraph 3, they're unable to depose Ms. Bernhardt. Had been unable until August 11th because she had been violating her probation and pretrial release conditions and could not be relocated. And then she was arrested on warrants on August 5th. And then they're saying here on August 12th, the state disclosed another witness, Mickey Easterwood, aka Mickey Lang, was also incarcerated with Adelson and Bernhardt and provided a recorded interview which took place on August 11th with investigator Newland and special agent Pat Sanford. During this interview, among other statements, Ms. Easterwood disclosed that rather than Bernhardt merely listening to Adelson make statements about her case, Bernhardt also asked Adelson questions. As a result of Bernhardt acting as an agent of the state, Ms. Adelson moves to suppress any statements Adelson made after December 20th, 2024. Okay, so what happens is when you have a client in jail on pending any kind of case, the government is not allowed to pierce the attorney-client relationship and go interview a witness represented by counsel or interview a defendant. So they're not able to send in Newland or Special Agent Pat Sanford of the FBI. They can't go in there and just start saying, hey, we want to go talk to Donna Adelson today, right? So what also is something under the law here in America is that you're not allowed to send in somebody that acts in place of them, and so you can't get around this rule that you can't approach represented defendants through a third party. So that's what the defense is saying is like, well, okay, Newland and Sanford didn't violate the duty to not talk to represented counsel without their counsel there, but they're saying that the state has used other people to do their job of asking questions of Donna. So if the state had basically asked this Easterwood to go to Donna and start asking her a list of these, let's say there's 20 questions they wanted to ask and they had it on a recording, then that would be obviously something that would be suppressed. But they're not saying that happened here. They're not saying that Easterwood had or even Bernhardt, none of them had been told by the state, any state investigator to do the questioning of Donna. So if they just on their own happen to ask Donna questions, so if Bernhardt was arrested in there and they're talking and comparing notes, which a lot of defendants do when they're in jail, they say, hey, what are you in here for? Hey, how's your attorney? Hey, when's your trial? They compare a lot of notes and they try to sometimes dig out details so they can turn around and then make statements against the other person so that they can get a lighter sentence. So you see people like Bernhardt or Easterwood that will make up stuff about a particular defendant that's in there, and if they know that they have a worse charge, a more serious charge against them, then they can have their attorney go to the prosecutor and say, hey, we're hearing Donna Adelson making some statements to put a hit out on people, or maybe she admitted to being a part of the conspiracy to kill Dan Markell. So those are kind of things that you see happen a lot. I've seen that happen a lot where I've seen witnesses that want to report on other stuff that's heard in the jail, but I've also had it happen to me, I think at least a couple times, where somebody said that my client made some admissions and they try to use it at trial. You see it a lot in murder trials where the defendant is held up in the jail. So any criminal defense lawyer should automatically be telling their client, do not be talking to anybody in the jail cell. Do not let them see your case file. Do not share or discuss your information, because they could always make something up against you. Now here, I'm not saying that we don't know what the truth is here, as whether what the details of this interaction between Donna and Easterwood and Bernhardt exactly are, but they'll come out at trial. But it's definitely very hurtful to Donna, even just her having some information about Donna's case. If Donna wasn't smart enough to keep her mouth shut and she's sitting there talking about her case to Bernhardt, then yeah, that's going to help prosecution seal a deal against her. So they're saying here in the statement of relevant facts, Bernhardt testified she met Adelson in the annex. According to jail records, Adelson was initially moved to the annex on August 24. Bernhardt was arrested for a violation of probation and a new charge on September 18th of 24. So that was last fall. Then in December of 24, Bernhardt was initially interviewed by Detective Joshua Turner of the Leon County Sheriff's Office. During this interview, Turner provided Bernhardt with his contact information. Subsequent to this interview, Bernhardt wrote a letter to Turner, which he received through interoffice mail. A copy of the letter was attached and incorporated as Exhibit A. Then on December 18th, Turner again interviewed Bernhardt. During this interview, Bernhardt provided Leon County Sheriff's Office, that's what the LSCO means, with information about a human trafficking case and Adelson's case. On December 18th of 24, interviewed Turner contacted investigator Jason Newland, and then in December 24, Bernhardt was brought to the state attorney's office to be interviewed. During this interview, she confirmed her current plea offer was 5 to 6 years. During her deposition, she conceded she was both a violent felony offender of special concern and qualified for sentencing as a prison releasee reoffender. The statements of Bernhardt made are addressed in the previously filed July 24, 25 motion in limine, and they're saying the transcripts were already provided to the court. And they're saying on paragraph 13 that Bernhardt told the state in December 20th of 24 that Adelson called Bernhardt her jail daughter. During the recorded interviews, law enforcement told Bernhardt not to ask Adelson questions and to listen to what Adelson said about the case. Specifically, Newland said, you cannot be an agent for us. I can't send you in there to ask her questions. And that's exactly what I was just trying to explain to you. Listen, if she has a casual conversation with you, there's nothing stopping you from having a conversation with her. Don't make things weird. Don't initiate any of those conversations. Newland continued saying, that is one of the biggest things that is to come out of this meeting with us is don't make it awkward, but definitely do not go back there on our behalf thinking you need to get us more information. And then they have which does not follow by anything else. Bernhardt testified that she provided written documents to Turner of what Adelson asked and instructed Bernhardt to say. When testifying on 10 different occasions, she later testified this happened more than 10 times. So they're saying here that Bernhardt testified she provided written documents to Turner of what Adelson asked and instructed Bernhardt to say when testifying. Okay, so Donna is soliciting Bernhardt to say certain things, do certain things, and she provided that to the state. Then during her August 11th of 25, so just a few days ago, Bernhardt initially claimed she did not ask Adelson any questions, but later she said she did ask Adelson questions. The fact that Bernhardt engaged in conversations rather than just acting as a listening post with Adelson is corroborated by a subsequently identified witness. Number 4, on August 11, 25, Mickey Easterwood informed law enforcement Bernhardt questioned and manipulated Adelson. During the August 11, 25 interview, Easterwood said it was very obvious she was trying to get information out of Donna. Instead of acting as a listening post, Bernhardt was not merely a passive listener. Rather, she continued to engage in conversation with Adelson. Statements purportedly made by Adelson after December 20th, 25 were a product of these conversations. The state's desire to elicit additional statements from Adelson resulted in 3 additional recorded interviews with Bernhardt, January 13th, January 29th, and February 11th. And then they cite the discussion of law here. It talks about the Supreme Court held that law enforcement cannot deliberately elicit conversation with the defendant in order to elicit incriminating information. So it goes on to say the Sixth Amendment prohibits law enforcement officers from deliberately eliciting statements from a defendant after the right to counsel is attached. The deliberately eliciting standard is clearly satisfied when the police directly interrogate or question a defendant, but also may be satisfied by less direct types of questioning. And it says here, see another case, U.S. Supreme Court case from 1985. Even though the defendant initiated the meeting, the defendant's right to counsel was violated where there was an undercover co-defendant met with and actively obtained incriminating statements from him. Passivity on the part of law enforcement is a critical factor in the analysis. A knowing exploitation by the state of an opportunity to confront the accused without counsel being present is much of a breach of the state's obligation not to circumvent the right to assistance of counsel, as is the intentional creation of such opportunity. It goes on to cite another case, a Florida case from 2017. And it talks about the proper inquiry in determining whether the defendant's statement to a jailmate or informant violates the defendant's Sixth Amendment rights to the degree of which law enforcement involvement at the time the statement is made. In the Zekin case, the defendant made incriminating statements to his cellmate, who then reported the statements to law enforcement and worked with law enforcement to obtain more information. The court affirmed that any statements made by the defendant to his cellmate after the date the cellmate began working with law enforcement or obtained in violation of Sixth Amendment rights were not admissible, but he made before that date were admissible. And it goes on to say in 26, where law enforcement intentionally create a situation likely to induce the defendant to make incriminating statements without assistance of counsel. Statements made by the defendant should be suppressed. This is especially so when the informant is not merely a passive listener, but rather an actively engaging the defendant in conversation, questioning the defendant, and then reporting back to law enforcement. Stated differently, a Sixth Amendment violation is only shown where the defendant establishes an informant and authorities had a pre-existing plan to obtain a confession. And they go on to make argument here, law enforcement violated Ms. Adelson's Sixth Amendment rights. Any statements that was the state can establish to have been made prior to December 20th may be admissible. However, the state sent Bernhardt back to Leon County Detention Center with a specific intent to elicit information from Adelson. Although the state may have told Bernhardt just to listen, they also said not to make it awkward and that Bernhardt should continue to engage in conversation with Adelson. The plan was for Bernhardt to continue to engage in conversation with Adelson in the hope that she made more statements. Bernhardt did what she believed she had to do so it would not be awkward. By sending Bernhardt back into jail with the stated purpose of obtaining additional information from Adelson, the state authorized Bernhardt's actions by further allowing Bernhardt to benefit from her continued conversation with Adelson. Her probation was reinstated instead of the 15-year prison release reoffender sentence or the purported 5 to 6 year offer. The state incentivized Bernhardt's continued actions on the state's behalf. As a Sixth Amendment violation is shown where defendant establishes the informant and authorizes a pre-existing plan for the informant to obtain a confession, a Sixth Amendment violation is established for this case for any statements made by Adelson after December 20th. Based on the foregoing, they're saying the state violated Donna Adelson's Sixth Amendment rights, and this court should suppress any statements Bernhardt claims Ms. Adelson made after December 20th. So if they have a third party that is saying this, keep in mind these are folks in jail, and then the rest of this is blocked out, so we don't see what in is Exhibit A here. But I can tell you that it does seem that they crossed the line. If this, assuming this is true, if they really told her, "Hey, we want you," let's go back see what they're saying here. Okay, he did a disclaimer saying, "Don't make it awkward, but definitely do not go back on our behalf. Think you need to get more information." Well, if she did go back there and try to get information, the fact she's talked to the state and she's trying to get her to talk about the case so she can help her own case get a better outcome, then you could see this motion being granted. But it all depends on what was said by Newland, so they're going to have have another hearing and see exactly what they told this person. Judge will have to get testimony from this Easterwood as well to find out what was really going on. I think the best thing you can do is if somebody comes and brings you information. I hate this what somebody in jails is has been saying. Just take notes and don't ask them to do anything. Don't ask them to initiate stuff. I would just say, okay, that's fine, and just leave it at that. Do not, as soon as you start saying, well, this is what you should do not ask any questions. But if you do have questions, just act like you have a casual conversation with you. There's nothing stopping you from having a conversation with her. Don't make things okay. Well, so it's sort of like vague here. And if the judge looks at this and going, well, that vagueness is sort of like something she interpreted mean start digging for more information on Donna. So if Newland here didn't say the right things, or even if he did, if this witness wants to go beyond what she was told to do, then it's probably going to be suppressed. But it's not a big deal because ultimately they got so much evidence against Donna. So I'm not worried about this motion at all. Do you guys have any questions on either of these two motions now? If you have red emoji options on your screen or on your computer, please go ahead and use a red emoji. Dave Leo, how can Wendy afford such a pricey lawyer? Well, the Adelsons had like 8 million back around the time this went down. The murder happened, so they probably burned through 5 or 6. One who knows you hate this system, invoke the fifth so you don't incriminate yourself. You should have to tell the truth, and if you incriminate yourself, too bad. Well, that's something that we've had in America since our founding days. The Bill of Rights protects you from being forced to be a witness against yourself. I think it's a good thing. It's making the state prove their case. Otherwise, they could do a lot of stuff to try to extract confessions and whatnot, false confessions even out of people. So the due process helps prevent the kind of troubling thing that can be out there otherwise, like false confessions. Do you think that's the government should be able to walk into anybody's house anytime they feel like it if they think a crime occurred, no search warrant required? That's another thing that you may say, well, I got nothing to hide, but there has to be some compliance with our Constitution. There's certain exceptions that have been eroded over a couple hundred years by case law, but that's what the original founding fathers of this country signed up for. Laura, you're asking if I think Harvey was an equal partner in this. There's a live stream. When was it? 2 years ago, I did on Harvey, just on Harvey alone. You can see that on this channel. So this was a very tight knit Florida family that would not do something behind someone's back involving something of this magnitude. Stacey Q, you're asking, do I think Harvey will arrested too at the same time as Wendy? That's what I think should happen, but I doubt it. They're just going one at a time down there in the state attorney's office. Officer Gray, I think she should be arrested after she testifies so she doesn't have a chance to flee. I agree with that. Because think about it, Donna almost got away with it. She almost was in Vietnam, and she would never have made it back. Adelson's and their money, they could have just paid government officials to protect them and not extradite them back to America. Talk Life. Why did Donna give a painting to Bernhardt? What kind of painting was that? Don't know the details on that, but was it just some kind of gesture to show goodwill that, we can't give you money now. I'll give you something of value to me. Maybe it's worth $10,000, something. Who knows? Lori, what was your guess of why this was so slow played? Well, there's a number of different things that have delayed this thing. My channel covers that over the last 2.5 years, but I would say anything from politics to issues of confidence, among other things, drag this thing out. Wendy's contacts. You've read Ruth's book prior to every trial. It's very painful to read, but I do it to honor Dan and his precious mom. That's very nice. We've read the book as well. No, the jury selection starts the 19th of August, not the 29th. Sugar Beet, you're 99% sure there's eyes on Wendy after her comings and goings, just like there was on Donna pre-arrest. No, there wasn't. They had no visibility on Donna, what she was doing, that she was planning to leave the country. People had to tip off law enforcement. They were asleep at the switch. They had to scramble just to get the arrest warrant done that day. They knew she was flying out that night. Let's see, Barrett, was the name of the book? The Unveiling. The Unveiling by Ruth Markell. Yeah, I think Harvey must have brought the painting in, delivered it. TK Gline, any chance they'd prosecute Wendy and Harvey together? I think they should, but I doubt they're going to do that. They're not aggressive like that. Razor's Edge, why wasn't Wendy a part of the wiretaps back in 2016? They didn't develop enough evidence against her. They had not done any search warrants. Other than the initial consent search on her phone, they didn't do a full scrub on her phone. They didn't pull up her emails. They didn't go to WhatsApp or Snapchat and try to look for those places for data. So they probably just didn't think they had anything to go on. And they maybe at that time didn't think she was involved. Gloria Bennett. Howard Donna's attorney's not in trouble for allowing Donna to use her phone to try to harm witnesses. Well, that could come down the line. If that's really true what they did, that could come back on them. They just don't want to have it upset the trial for right now. Yeah, we don't know all the details. I agree. Miss P, what date does testimony start? It's probably going to be, they start on Tuesday. They'll probably start Friday, maybe as soon as Thursday afternoon. Yeah, please don't do all caps. It's more of an eye strain. And thanks, Food is Love, for your help tonight. Modding. Edward Tozer, it's always the spouse. Usually the spouse it is, or ex-spouse in this case. Missy Cohen, in Jewish religion, we go to the cemetery on the first anniversary to unveil the headstone. Yeah, that's what that was about. I remember that now that you say that. And think about it, the cemetery down Merkel up in Canada, the boys have never been to. They're what, 15 and 16 years old now, and they've never been up there to. That's the kind of stuff they need to bring out at trial. They didn't bring out at trial last time that Wendy changed not only the boys' middle names, but also changed their last name from Markel to Adelson. No, they're not. They're not filthy rich. They've lost a lot of money through attorneys now. Probably 5 million plus is my rough estimate. Evan Elizabeth Duke. What I find interesting is Sigfredo's not brought back to testify. Sigfredo, I mean, talk about making bad decisions between him and Katie. Wow. Haley, no, you're asking if the Markels ever get the family heirloom back. No, they did not. That's not brought out at trial either by the prosecution. Carmi girl, in your experience, how does a witness who's benefiting from this latest motion read to a jury? I think it's like anybody that's cut a deal with the state to get some kind of protection or better deal on their criminal sentence. They're going to look at their motives to fabricate. What do they have to gain by lying? Do they look credible? Do they sound credible? How do they act? How do their eyes and body language act when they're asked tough questions? Keep in mind, Wendy does a terrible job. She has a lot of indicators of deception when she testifies. Malcolm Ritchie, hello. Do you feel as I, Wendy, actually seems to be making fun of the justice system, bullet bourbon, laughing at the statement that she might end up in jail, rephrasing every question? I think she acts like she's untouchable, but I think this last trial with Charlie, I think that's when she realized that she bombed it. Supposedly, her attorney said, you did terrible on the witness stand there. He told her that in the parking lot. It's been reported. Somebody overheard that. If he said that, that'd be accurate. She did absolutely terrible. Could not be believed one iota. Yeah, but you girl, the boys are also losing their opportunity to connect with their partial Canadian culture and identify. Yeah, they don't know anything about the Canadian culture up there. Becky Einhorn, you saying which Adelson is the most evil kingpin in your opinion? I don't know this case very well. Yeah, it's worth studying up on the case, Becky. I guess, or at least just watch the trial. But there's a lot of stuff that doesn't even come out at the trials. Who's the most evil? Man, I would say if you can do this to your kid's father, and then you can look them in the eye and tell them what happened to their dad. That's as bad as it gets. That there's nothing more vicious than that because you're the boy's mother. A grandparent doing that, horrible, horrible. Uncle taking part in it, unreal. But a mother that's got to raise these boys without a dad. Wow, that's the ultimate. Denise Fiorelli. Do I think Harvey will stay away from the trial? Would be there to support her. Both he and Donna stayed away from Charlie's trial. I'm thinking it's possible he will not be there. I think he doesn't want to be there, but I think he has to be there to support Donna. So I think he's going to be there, and he's going to be looking very uncomfortable, and he's not testifying to corroborate anything Donna says. So I mean, such a poor defense of a case when you have no corroborating witnesses. They'll have a couple witnesses talking about maybe how Donna wasn't intending to leave for Vietnam for good, but she probably put those breadcrumbs out there just so she could have somebody that could testify on her behalf. Yeah, she talked about coming back. She wasn't going to leave the country for good. Carmi girl, yes, she did terrible in her interview and terrible on the stand. It's absolutely amazing how she has gotten this far. Yeah, I'm telling you, if this case was in Texas, this has been wrapped up so much quicker. Carmi girl, you said I can't believe how many details are in the Over My Dead Body podcast. I've never made it to any of the trials. Keep in mind, Georgia has said she's not a very detailed person, so she needs to be very detailed. On murder cases, you better be especially detail focused. Marta Cubillo, I'm surprised having a lawyer like John Laura does not coach on how to act on the stand. Excuse me, what was your question? Is that a question? Our boys? I I think I think, yeah. No, on the other hand, though, I don't think anybody can really coach Wendy how to act because you can't tell the truth. And you're not telling the truth, you're going to act strange and say strange things, and the hate's going to come out. Angie, you're saying unless we aren't aware, it doesn't seem all we have on Wendy is circumstantial, unless someone flips like Charlie. And understandable, some cases convicted on circumstantial. Well, circumstantial evidence is very powerful and strong, stronger than actual direct evidence of a, let's just say, an eyewitness. There's been many cases that get overturned on appeal due to direct evidence and eyewitness, and eyewitnesses turn out to be through DNA. They're proven that their eyewitness memory is completely botched. Circumstantial is more trustworthy, reliable, and it's that way in real life as well. Every day you do something that you rely on circumstantial evidence, and you don't even question it. So you have absolute trust in things. Just for you to get on an airplane, you have circumstantial evidence of trust that the plane is going to fly and that there's fuel in the plane. There's recently, where was that, in Turkey, a plane, the pilot basically did a suicide type thing, they're saying, and he had the power, the pumps to the fuel tank shut off so that as they're taking off, the thing ran out of fuel suddenly, and they did a belly flop on the ground and killed killed everyone except one of the guy that jumped off the plane. I think, was that the one? Anyway, you trust all these different things are happening. There's circumstantial evidence that things are done the right way. I mean, just even pumping gas in your car, if you're trusting that there's gas there, you don't actually know that they put fuel in the gas tank, right? You're just trusting that and you're relying on that. So you didn't actually see gasoline go into your car, and yet you're driving away with it. Circumstantially, you're trusting that that was actually had gasoline in it. So a lot of circumstantial stuff. It's less subject to manipulation. So there's many cases that circumstances that make you firmly believe that something happened. So when you add up all the indicators of Wendy, that you're saying all that is just, what are the odds? You look up the odds of Wendy having 1 versus 2 versus 3 versus 4 versus 5, 6, 7, 10. What are the odds that Jeff Lacasse would be set up as a fall guy for 8 months if she didn't know anything about the planning of Dan Markel's execution? Why would she be asking Dan in a text message in the early part of July, are you going to be home 14th, 18th July? Posing as a question about kids and their custody arrangements. And then asked, just like Charles said, what are the odds she would drive by to the crime scene shortly after it happened? You start going through all those different odds. What are the odds of this happening? What are the odds of that happening? It's circumstantial evidence of involvement of a murder. So it's very plain to see. And it's provable. All those things are provable. How many indicators do you need to show somebody's involved in helping facilitate a murder? Just one credible one. But you got oodles of them here. Ozzie Jansen, do I think the boys will watch the trial? I don't even want to think about the boys watching the trial. This is so much a troubling thing for them to have to live through. So I don't even want to think about that right now. But the shame and embarrassment. Kathy G. Chung, how did Donna's lawyer? Okay, they're buying a one-way ticket. That's the quality of the lawyers representing these co-conspirators is really unbelievable. I mean, they got some really crazy stuff going on in Florida. I'll tell you that. Yeah, I mean, you can prove a murder case without even having a body found, right? Look how many people have been convicted over the years. There's no body found. Like we said on the showed on the short today, which there's an attorney there indicating that Wendy had more motive than anybody else to have Dan Markel killed. That sounds accurate. Spencer B. The only way for two hitmen to know the dance schedule for the day was through Wendy. Full stop. You mean to tell me that Charlie would send two thugs up there to do an execution style murder of Dan Markel and they wouldn't have coordination, know when the boys are going to be there or not be there? There's an envelope with instructions. You're saying no information came from Wendy. Is that really possible? Is it really possible if somebody kills their sister's ex-husband just to relocate your sister closer to you without telling your sister and getting her blessing for it? Mongeezy, much of the jailhouse informant's claims remain sealed. I suspect these pieces of the informant's testimony pertain to statements Donna is alleged to have made implicating Wendy. Thoughts? Yeah, I think, what do we hear about? There were comments made to do some kind of hurt against Katie McBanois, Katie's mom, and also Dr. Rob Adelson up in the Northeast. So I don't think it's about things implicating Wendy. I think it's about how to intimidate witnesses. But we'll find out at trial, hopefully. Hopefully all that will be fleshed out. Yeah, Wendy hated Dan. It comes through all the time. That's why I wish the prosecution would humanize Dan more. Ask more questions about Dan. What was Dan like as a father, Wendy? Can you imagine her just hating questions like that? I mean, she can't hold back. And those kind of questions to ask Donna as well. Rosemary Gallagher, yeah, Wendy should return the Holocaust ring. Who would do that to somebody? Who would do that to somebody? You got to be a really sick, evil person to take a family heirloom. Really sick person. I'm just thinking of another situation like that I recently I'm familiar with here in Texas. Carrie Sue, do you think Katie will be more truthful after learning Donna wanted to put a hit on her? I think she's going to be truthful anyway. Don't know how much she's might have heard about Donna. Suppose they want to put some hurt on her, but she better be as truthful as she can possibly be. Yeah, I'm not going to talk about mental illnesses of any players here. I'm taking it from the prosecution standpoint. Prosecutors don't talk about mental deficiencies of defendants unless it has to do with like insanity defense or diminished capacity type defense. Maybe, sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. Could this delay the trial? No, they'll have a hearing. There's still time to have a hearing before this trial kicks off on the 19th. Piggy do. Yeah, I hope the boys do change their names back to Markel when they become adults. Let's see. There was a question or a comment here saying I didn't think your question was good enough, so I ignored it. There's a lot of questions I don't get to, folks, because there's a tiny little narrow screen. That's all I have to look at to try to find comments. That's one of the reasons why I ask in the mod food is love. If you put all caps in there, it's just harder to read. It's more of an eye strain. But no, there's a lot of questions that don't take it personal if I don't answer your question. I may have jumped ahead to try to play catch up. Like right now, how many minutes behind am I? I'm like 5 minutes behind. I was 10 minutes behind. Rosemary Gallagher, it's really heartbreaking for the boys, and keeping them from their grandparents is even more heartbreaking. Yeah, boys don't really know their grandparents at all. What a sick tragedy. D Gib, yeah, and showing up to her girlfriend luncheon at the in a Walmart yard work outfit. There was a purpose to the dress down. I think so. I think that's an indicator something's being staged. Kendall B, you agree circumstantial evidence pretty strong. There's no way Don and Charlie could have had detailed knowledge of Dan and the movements on the day without Wendy's voluntary contribution. Jen exit. You wonder if Charlie feels that Wendy set him up. Oh, I totally believe that's the case. He is fuming mad at her. He's blaming her for everything. Why he's in prison. DK Gline, does Jeff Licassi more vengeful and honest in his detailed memory to you? I believe most of what he said, but also seems a little pointed. I don't I don't see him as being anything but other than 100% honest and very insightful, very sharp. And like he says, he fell under some kind of spell by Wendy, and he just got sucked up into a lot of different things. And so no, he's a key witness to this whole case. He had this Adelson clan of Florida figured out. Took him a little while, but he was putting the pieces together. And the problem is, law enforcement couldn't see it for what it is, even though he handed him a major gift. AJ was determined why Charlie was paying Katie $3,000 a month. Well, it surely wasn't because of a robbery on a payment plan. Was he being truthful on that detail that it was to keep her quiet, happy? Well, he was saying that he couldn't afford it, so that's why he only went to $3,000 a month. No, the reason that he only made it $3,000 a month and not more was because he had to help her keep a low profile in case her records were searched to see how her sudden change of income would make it look like she was getting paid for taking part in a murder, which is actually what happened. She got paid $56,000 extra in the year after Dan Markel's murder. So they try to pay it in different ways and means to try to keep a low profile on that. But they didn't do a good enough job because it's definitely very incriminating. Lauren, why would you want their family heirloom after you stripped the family Markel name from the boys? It's disgusting. Yeah, that's why they better bring that out at trial. I mean, how would you not bring that out at trial? I just don't get it. Stevie Ho, when the prosecutor asked Charlie what Dan was like, he said a nerd. Yeah, I mean, he also laughed when all those names were repeated of what Donna called Dan, so he thought that was funny. A jury will not think that's funny at all. Sarasota, do I think Georgia Kappelman is saving some of her best for when she doesn't have her immunity deal? I hope she lets it rip. Yeah, I hope so too. I think she will have more. She's got to get into the nitty gritty details. Flightless, you're saying you have an heirloom ring from your mother-in-law. You'd be turning it back after a split, no question. Keeping it out of spite is bizarre. It is like vengeful hatred to the max, isn't it? To do that to someone. They're even dead. I mean, I wouldn't. Someone's dead and you won't give something back to their family? That's an heirloom from the Holocaust? Unbelievable. But it's totally representative of the degree of hate. And where there's hate, you can see the motive to kill. So that's to me tied in totally together, and a jury will see it for what it is. You hate somebody enough to take an heirloom ring from a relative that survived the Holocaust, then you hate that person enough to want to have them killed. Those things are very close parallel, I think. Paula Moon, you're asking why Harvey's not being called to testify. I think the states, for some reason, is letting him off the hook. They don't want to do a deposition on him. I do a deposition on him, but maybe they don't want to do that because they were figuring we don't want to deal with his immunity and we'll just maybe charge him down the road anyway. But the defense isn't calling him because he would have to lie to try to salvage Donna, and Donna's going to have a hard enough time telling her own stories, but she's confident when she lies. Harvey probably not so much. So keep in mind, Harvey couldn't even look people in the eye after the murder. So he was acting very, very conscious of the guilt involved. Jalen Roberts, do you think they'll ask Donna actually what Donna actually thought laundering money was? Yeah, that laundering of money is going to definitely come up. I've been saying that it's from the first attempt, the month of June, that the money was washed in preparation of handing it off in June, and then they just kept it in a plastic bag, and it got that moldy smell in it. Meanwhile, D. Gibb, you're saying you're asking if I would go live 3 hours a night for the duration. Well, I plan on covering the whole trial during the day, so if I had to do 3 hours at night, I'd be wiped out too much to cover the trial the next day probably, so if I'm doing live coverage during the day, I'll probably maybe do a shorter recap, like a half hour, 45 minutes or something. River Birch, Georgia should put Ruth on the stand to show what a wonderful son and father he was. Her grandchildren would appreciate somebody when they watch the trial. Well, the reason you also need to do that is it's a counterweight for any sympathy that Donna could garner based on her age. So if you don't have any of the family representation there for Dan Markel, it's just bizarre. It's really bizarre. And to bring out how are they going to prove out this issue about denial of visitation? How are you going to prove that Wendy lied, saying that Adelsons have, excuse me, the Markells have unfettered access to their grandchildren? You know, Jamie G, any chance the wire will show Donna talking to Charlie through her lawyer? I don't I don't believe the wire is I think you're talking about the jailhouse calls. I don't know if they're going to use any of the jailhouse calls. If they do, it'd be very short. Maybe it's the hot mic moment talking about fleeing is the only thing they're going to use. I think the rest of it they won't use. Neverly, the Holocaust ring is like a trophy to Wendy. Yeah, I think so. LRM. If Georgia asks Wendy too much, she can't use it against her, correct? Perhaps that's why Georgia isn't digging in. Well, everything they're asking Wendy's pretty much not denying it. So when they catch her in lies, she loses her immunity at that for every lie. So I don't see that's really a reason why. It might be for Georgia, but if you really want to get a conviction, you still have enough independent corroboration to go after others, which would be Wendy and Harvey. So she's gotten way more aggressive this last time against Charlie. I've been saying that she's got to go way more aggressive on Wendy on Charlie's case than she did previously, and she did. And I think she'll maybe step it up a notch this time as well. I hope she does. Tracy Smith, you're saying that's why you think the state should bring up the ring. Uri Graves, do I think when he heard Donna's case by trying to quash the subpoena? No, it's something the lawyer's doing, and they don't want Wendy testifying unless she's under that subpoena protection. E. Moraine, Bran, can you explain why Wendy would have any immunity? Well, every state witness has an immunity. That's just a state statute. So if you're subpoenaed by the state in a criminal case, everybody has the same thing Wendy has. Nothing special about it. Yeah, Evelyn Santos, who'd wash money? I think Donna probably washed it, worried about DNA transfer, fingerprints, or something like that. Yeah, Leah, damp stapled money. Yeah, that's very odd, isn't it? Linus Pumpkin, the Adelson family reunions are not only murder trials with each other now out for themselves. Yeah, think about it. So I've said this before. So Donna's been locked up going on 21 months. She's not seen or heard from Wendy a single time. Then Wendy's going to show up there at trial. I think Wendy will not even look at her mom. And if they have eye contact, the jury's going to want to see that. They're going to want to see that for sure. And then she's moved away. So now Harvey's alone in South Florida. This whole thing, this whole murder happened. So the Florida Adelsons could be in Florida alone without any hardship of Dan inconveniencing them by taking the boys away for his 50% of the visitation. So they wanted 100% of the visitation, and they're willing to commit murder to get that accomplished. And now the only one left in South Florida there is Harvey. How did this blow up in their faces like that? How could they do something so recklessly stupid as commit a murder in broad daylight? Carly D, I wonder why Katie didn't fess up that Wendy called her to inform her that the job was done. Did Georgia ever ask her that? Well, Katie said, "Yeah, I already know." When Luis Rivera was saying that when Sigfredo called Katie to inform her that the execution had been accomplished, Katie says, "Yeah, I already know," or something like that. So the question was, how would she already know that? And so the theory is, well, they must have gotten word via Wendy to Charlie to Katie that the hit was accomplished. Jody Mortimer, in the event Wendy goes to jail, can she elect the boys a guardian for custody? Can she still control if the Mark Hills can see the boys or not? No, once you get arrested, the state Department of Human Services, they'll get involved and they will make arrangements for the boys. They'll take them into custody and put them in someplace temporarily until they make more permanent arrangements. But no, Wendy wouldn't have any say in that. I've never seen a state that had that happen. I've already covered the motion, so if you want to go back, you can see one of these motions is not that big a deal. So it's a standard thing done every trial that she's testified in. TK Klein, do I think Donna will come off as smug and self-absorbed as Charlie did on the stand? Yeah, I think Donna's going to come across terrible. I think her lawyer, Jackie Fulford, is going to come across terrible. So I think they're a good match. Carrie Sue, you're saying if they arrest Wendy, how long would it take for her to get her fancy lawyer out of her jail? Well, if she's arrested for first degree murder, she will not be released from jail at all. So she's going to be held up in Leon County Jail until her trial happens. They will never let her bond out. Quinn, you're asking, where did the hitman first encounter Dan? Charlie could have given Dan's address, but Wendy would have to share location info if they started following him from somewhere he was scheduled to be. Well, the hitman tried to track Dan back in June, and then the July timeframe, they followed him from the house to the Premier Gym and then back to the house. So yeah, the details of what Dan was doing and where, that's the kind of stuff that a jury will pick up on, that must have came from Wendy. Keep in mind, Wendy's asking what he was doing the 14th to 18th. Why they had scheduled custody arrangements. She didn't ask for any deviation from that. Tracy Smith, you're saying Wendy lied on the stand already. Why don't they do something? Yeah, they should charge her with perjury as well. That's an aggressive move. I think the real aggressive move that they're doing, that I'm very pleased to see, is that they're calling all these lawyers. All the co-conspirators' lawyers are being put on the witness stand. All the work of Adelson lawyers to try to get the hitmen and middleman lawyers to not cooperate with the police is so damning. It's so critically damning to any Adelson posturing of innocence. Charlie Delta, would I put Donna on the stand? I can think of no upside to doing this. Is this a bluff? No, she's going to testify. Donna wants to testify. She thinks she can talk her way out of this. Would I put Donna on the stand? See, a lawyer, if they know the client's lying, as long as the client has not told them, hey, I'm going to make up this whopper of a story and I'm going to lie to the jury, the prosecutor, excuse me, the attorney for that person just has to let them go up there and tell their story. So if it's really a ridiculous story like this one is for Charlie and what it's going to be like for Donna, then most attorneys are not going to try to talk them out of it, especially if they have a lot of money to pay them go to trial. So they're not paying $1+ million to Zellman and Fulford just to have her plead out. So would I put Donna on stand? I wouldn't be going to trial in a case like Donna's. If she wouldn't cut a deal, then I would withdraw. If I couldn't talk her into cutting a deal, then I would withdraw. I would want to go to trial with such stupid theory of a case. You wouldn't want me up there. I'd be laughing. As I told this stupid story about what they're trying to claim about this double layer of a robbery plan with a payment plan. Maya Rodriguez S. Sorensen, Esquire. You didn't think about the eye contact between Wendy and Donna. It's going to be so dramatic. How could it be? Yeah, see, what I would do on a trial like that, I'd be asking, when's the last time you talked to your mom? And what did you guys talk about? What have you talked about this case? How often have you talked about this case? What do you, tell us how you found out so your mom kept this secret that they knew who the killers were, yet you thought they were still on the loose, even though they already known who they were, and your family never told you who they were, and yet you moved to the location exactly where these hitmen were. I mean, it's just, you could have a field day with this kind of stuff. So hopefully they go into a lot of questioning like that. But I think Wendy and Donna, the eye contact or lack of it, the body language is going to be really, really something to behold. So John will be there to pick it up and feed us that information. Jennifer Schultz, the eye contact, you're right. They're going to hide Donna to the crazy defense table set up by the way they want. Sarah Lee Bakerson, who has all the money for Wendy's lawyers? We don't know. It could be coming from Harvey or other sources. Kathy, you're again with us here asking Wendy can't sit next to her dad and watch trial because she's a witness, correct? She probably wouldn't want to anyway. If she's released as a witness, then she could stay there and watch the rest of the trial. So remember, she got recalled last time and she was heading back home. She was permanently released, but then they realized they need to bring her back. So, yeah, if she gets released, she should be there. If she once the prosecution's case is over and they're not going to call her in rebuttal for anything, is she going to be sitting by her dad? I doubt it. She's going to want to bolt out of there as fast as she can. She knows her mom's going down. I mean, think about it. She's not going to stick around and watch the defense case. Then after arguments or during arguments, you think Wendy's going to be there and help support her mom? I don't think so at all. I think she'll be back home. Wow is asking, will Rob implicate Wendy or his dad in Donna's trial? So, you're talking about Dr. Rob Adelson. I think he'll probably implicate, Donna and mostly Donna, but then also somewhat probably Wendy and Harvey as well. That's probably true. Okay, please don't do all caps. All right, I'm just gonna jump ahead here. Yeah, what about why was Jeff LaCasse asked about what route he was taking to go to Tennessee? You tell me that's not a real damning indicator of foreknowledge and planning and involvement? Inspired JFK last trial when he said she didn't know about the extortion, which I call the robbery on a payment plan. Yeah, she said she found out about it that morning she testified, which is obviously a whopper of a lie. Thanks for keeping the chat clean. Want to make sure we have professional discussions here. We're not about hating on people or being ugly. So Angie, would any of chat give Charlie a deal to flip on Wendy? The state's not going to cut him a deal to flip. What he can do is decide to flip and then agree to testify against Wendy. But that's not going to happen now. He's waiting on his appeal. So he's thinking he's going to win on the appeal. Even if he wins on the appeal, which I think will take years to unravel and be decided, they're going to try him again. So I don't know what that's getting him. He could be out a lot sooner if he had agreed to testify against Wendy, and then based on his cooperation, he could basically be able to get out as an old man from prison and maybe have some interaction with his son. But he would also have to tell on Harvey and also his mom. So that's probably what's going to keep him from cooperating. Yeah, Milani, I don't think Charlie's going to testify. I think he'd rather get held in contempt of court than testify, which is ironic, right? He has so much belief in his defense that he told in his own trial. I know Fran Fitzpatrick has been arrested several times recently. I'm not aware of that. Leah Baker, no one's hating on anyone. That's good. The YouTube posts are on fire. Yeah, that's all John's doing. Those are pretty hilarious. Doing before and after. Something changed. Why is he sounding totally different? Evelyn Santos, yeah, jury will pick up that Wendy's not standing by her parents. Yeah, this whole case, there's so many circus acts going on. And what really gets me is when you're disrespecting murder victims, like things have gone on, no regard for dignity and respect of murder victims. That's what really burns me up. So Mavi, the FBI tapes are so incriminating. She's toast. Yeah, does sound like an innocent person to you? Never. Jerry Griffin, you're saying some lawyer on SCS a couple hours ago predicted the state would stop with Donna, not somebody other than. Okay, that's fine. I bet you it wasn't Dave Ehrenberg. Dave Ehrenberg is a former prosecutor for the state down in Miami. He thinks they're going after her as well. I was the first and only attorney, actual criminal law attorney, that said they had enough evidence to go against Wendy. And that's why my brother was able to twist my arm and get me to start an interview. It started with an interview on YouTube, and then it turned into a channel. But in any event, I just didn't. It was hard for me to stomach to watch people talk about stuff they have no experience talking about. Most people that are talking about the case as lawyers are not actually criminal law practitioners. And even if they are, do they really have they really done a lot of criminal trials, and have they actually won a lot of trials? You can hold yourself out as a lawyer, you can hold yourself out as a criminal law defense attorney, and you can be totally inept at jury trials. You can run from jury trials and get your clients to plead guilty. So there's a wide range, just like in any profession, there's a wide range of folks that actually know what they're doing. And so that's what I didn't like, was the disrespect for the Markells, the abuses to the boys, not saying the Markells. So for people to basically feel good about saying somebody's getting away with something, that ought to tell you something right there, that something's off. Something's off on their compass. Why would you feel good about somebody getting away with murder? You feel good about that, broadcasting that? Feel like you know what you could do? Well, it's one thing if they say they will not have enough evidence, or they say they won't prosecute. It's another thing, are they gonna actually say that Wendy is innocent? Why doesn't that question asked of people? Say, "Well, they're gonna stop with, Donna after a conviction of Donna." Well, really? What do you think about any other involvement? Why is she an unindicted co-conspirator? So do you agree with the state that she's involved in this or not? So how many indicators does it take? It takes just one. It takes just one. So I'd have no problems prosecuting more Adelsons. Yeah, that's my brother that's able to cut and do all that electronic stuff. I have no idea how to do those shorts. That's John. John's the tech one, not me. Leslie's tech also, highly tech, way more than me. She's super high speed, but yeah, I'm not sharp on that kind of stuff. Oh, thanks, Maya Esquire. You're saying Stephen Webster still firmly believes Wendy will be arrested. Yeah, so and if folks get on there to say she won't be arrested, why would you want to disrespect the Markells like that? Do you feel good about yourself disrespecting murder victims like that? So anyway, it's just if I was hanging out with criminal defense lawyers for a group of folks that conspired to murder somebody, do you think I'd be giving you reliable information? Or do you think I'd be giving you defense information? Yeah, my that's the point. Does anyone actually think Wendy's innocent? So yeah, that's what I think they should ask. Oh, so are you saying she's innocent? I want to hear you say, whether she's guilty or not. So if you think she's guilty, what indicators make you think she's guilty? So, and it's like, okay, well, how many indicators do you need? What are your best indicators that make you think she's guilty? So anyway, it's you pull back on the onion, you can see folks. It's like they sort of get a kick out of it, or some folks have an agenda, right? That's what can get them to flip flop. Yeah, so I can tell you also, I can tell you also as a trial attorney, I can't tell you how many. Well, I can tell you this: every single trial, jury trial I've won or bench trial I've won, I always catch flip flops and things hiding the ball and misstatements of evidence. I mean, I could go on and on. All the kind of stuff I've called out the other attorneys at trial. It happens every single time. It's very common. It's very common for attorneys to try to distort things, make up things that didn't happen at trial, and it's and they get caught every time. They get. I've not. I cannot think of a single trial I've done over several decades that I've not had an attorney do something like that where I can call them out as looking shady. So, and the thing is, you got to have exact knowledge of details. You can't put a spin on stuff. You can't make stuff up and not expect to get called out on it. So it's amazing what attorneys think they can get away with and expect a jury to buy it. So if you're doing shady stuff, putting a spin on stuff, you're going to get called out at trial. But yet you see it happen all the time. Certified fraud examiner. It's going to be wild to see Don testify. Be cross-examined when he must be so nervous. Yeah, I don't. I don't think Donna's that nervous at all. I think she's just fuming mad. Wendy, yeah, she's. I'm sure she's got to be nervous. I think she's telling herself she's got good money. She's been paying to stay out of prison, so it's working so far. But I I really hope Sarah does a cross examination this time. Sarah to me is more detailed oriented than Georgia, and she's earned the right. I think with her great efforts on the last trial with Charlie. So I hope she takes a greater role. So many attorneys go through scripts on cross examining folks, and they are more tied to the script than they are actually thinking of what the witness says and then going, hey, I'm going to do a deep dive on that right now and just start picking that point apart. For example, when Charlie said it was a bad word usage for his mom on the wiretaps, when we heard Donna saying TV for five, and Charlie's going, oh, yeah, this is a bad word choiceage for my mom or something like that. It's like Georgia let him off on that. I mean, that could have been like, that's like the one of the hottest smoking gun evidences that Donna was involved, and she just let him go and didn't do any further follow up. And so that's what happens. I see that happen a lot when lawyers have a script that they want to use for every witness. They have a script for their arguments. Everything's scripted out, so they want to have everything tightly controlled. They don't want any surprises. But I like going more of the, you know it like the back of your hand. You know the details of the case better than anybody else in the courtroom, better than your opponent, better than the witnesses. You know how to pick apart witnesses, and you just go in there and gun them down, and you do a stare down with them, and they realize that you're not letting up on these glib answers, the ones that they think that can deflect and bob and weave out of your direct questions. So that's what I'm thinking. It's better to have Sarah Dugan do the cross on Donna. Yeah, Carmi girl, the fact that the juror from Katie's trial came out and said that the jury was wondering why the Adelsons haven't been arrested tells me there's absolute possibility the jury will convict one. It's not a possibility. I would do it. Dr. Latina, what are your thoughts about when you having worn the owl T-shirt the day of the murder, and that Sigfredo posted an owl on his Facebook upon a return to Miami that day? Yeah, I think that was actually was that the night before it happened when they were up I think that was up in Tallahassee, and then so it wasn't the night that they were back in Miami. If I stand corrected, let me know. But yeah, what are the odds of both them having to have that? I mean, that could be an odd coincidence, but both have an owl, 'cause that could be part of the code as well. That's not brought out at trial. Those kind of details, I'd bring out all those details because different jurors have different conclusions on it. And yeah, the owl is a symbol of death in some cultures. That is true. That is one of the indicator on my slides about what Wendy was wearing. I didn't tie it in with the owl being posted by one of the hitmen that night or one of the nights either before or after the murder. But yeah, that can make it a stronger case. Yeah, what are the odds Wendy found out about a extortion, this robbery plan with a payment plan where you have years to pay off 3,000 a month? Come on, really? Could anybody be that stupid in Tallahassee to believe that wild story? Yeah, Armand Fence, the owl is a symbol of Brandeis University where where Wendy went to school. But yeah, but look at their owl. Their owl's a cartoonish one. It's not the kind that Wendy had on at all. So I looked at that, and I think that discounts it. Georgia and California, I'm sure Best Buy told them over the phone a broken screen cannot be repaired. I wonder how they got them to come out. Yeah, nobody would have Best Buy come out for a broken screen. Nobody would. You'd ask the question, "Hey, I got a cracked screen. Can you come out and repair it?" No. It would be more than a new TV. Yeah, Cam, that's what I thought it was. Luis was the one who posted a picture out from his hotel room and quickly took it down. Yeah, because I think Katie is the one that called him out on it. Okay, with that, I'm going to go ahead and sign off tonight, guys, and I'll plan on being back tomorrow night, and we'll go from there. So you all have a safe Friday, and we'll keep this case going and cause going for the Markells. So appreciate you all supporting them, and we're going to see this thing through, and we're going to see justice happen, and it's slowly happening, but surely happening, and there's more arrests and convictions to follow after Donna. So with that, I'll talk to y'all later. Take care. Good night.